The Roman Veronica. The Roman Veronica, which Dante called our Veronica, is mysterious even in its name, which identifies both the sudarium and the woman who holds it in her hands. The stories of the two Veronicas follow different paths. The oldest legends make Veronica coincide with a woman who had been bleeding for years, who received the veil from Jesus himself as an answer to her desire to see the Lord's face again. Veronica, the hemorrhaging woman, kept the veil until the year 34, when Tiberius, who was seriously ill, came to know about Jesus and sent someone to look for him in Palestine. But Jesus had already died. Tiberius would later punish Pilate, and so Veronica was taken to Rome with her healing veil. It is only in a version of 1183 that the meeting between Christ and Veronica takes place within the Passion. I had had a cloth made and was carrying it in my arms when I met the prophet. His hands were tied behind his back with a leather strap. The Jews I met begged me, in the name of God, to give them my cloth and to wipe the prophet's face. In 1191, the King of France was shown the linen cloth that Christ pressed on his face, and on which the imprint still appears evident as if Christ were there. The chronicle declares that the image was formed in the Garden of Olives. In 1208, Pope Innocent III called for an annual procession and granted an indulgence to those who prayed in front of the precious image that the faithful call Veronica. It was the first indulgence connected with an image. In 1289, Nicholas IV added a second, and still others accumulated, with different conditions. In 1300, the first Holy Year was proclaimed, and the image of the Veronica became the symbol of all pilgrims to Rome, the way the shell is the symbol of pilgrims to St. James of Compostela. Among the pilgrims was Dante, who set Easter 1300 as the beginning of the Divine Comedy. In Vita Nova he says, "At the time when many people go to see that blessed image, which Jesus Christ left us as an imprint of his most beautiful countenance." And in Paradiso he says, "As he who peradventure from Croatia cometh to gaze at our Veronica, who through its ancient fame is never sated, but says in thought, the while it is displayed, My Lord, Christ Jesus, God of very God, now was your semblance made like unto this?" Petrarch mentions the Jubilee of 1350. Grizzled and white, the old man leaves the sweet place, where he has provided for his life, and leaves the little family filled with dismay that sees its dear father failing it. He reaches Rome, following his desire, to gaze on the image of him whom he hopes to see again in heaven. Uncertainty remains surrounding the name of the relic. Some held that Veronica was just an anagram, vera icon, real image. In various documents, the veil was called the Holy Sudarium of Christ. St. Veronica was deleted from the register of Ambrosian martyrs by St. Charles Borromeo in the 16th century. But pilgrims tell stories about a woman, Veronica, whose house they had seen in Jerusalem, and about her act of mercy along the way up to Calvary, while an ancient tradition recounts that the bleeding woman was a Jew from Caesarea, whose name was Berenike. Until the end of the 15th century, the Veronica was the most desired relic of Rome and Christianity. Since the indulgence was linked to the recitation of a prayer, such as the Salve Sancta Facies of John XXII, in front of a reproduction of the Veronica, the image spread across Europe. Hail, holy face of our Redeemer. in which the figure of the divine glory shines, snow-white cloth portrayed and given to Veronica as a sign of love. The words divine glory shines recall the Transfiguration. The Pope, along with Dante and Petrarch, thus seem to refer to the face of Jesus transfigured. The profession of painter of Veronicas spread in Rome for those who were forced to see it for a short while from a distance. The holy face became a recurring motif on the path travelled by pilgrims. But what did the Veronica exactly look like? It's a difficult question. There are many differences in the various representations of the Veronica. The face can emerge with blurred edges from a dark background, like in this devotional shutter in Warsaw in 1350. Or it can have a precise boundary line, like a drawing on a light background. Like the Camulia, the Veronica was probably printed on a veil so thin as to change appearance if placed against different media, and even disappear if the light shines through it. Even Luther, who visited Rome in 1510, emphasized the transparency of Veronica's veil. It is simply a square black little board on which a blank piece of cloth hangs, and above this there is another veil. There, poor Jena Hans cannot have seen anything more than a piece of blank cloth covering a black board. This is the Veronica which is shown. The Byzantine influence on the Veronica was not just artistic. Take this manuscript from 1293, which contains a diagram. We don't know if the subject of the diagram is the Mandylion or the Veronica. In 1249, the future Pope Urban IV sent this Slavic icon to his abbess sister in France, who had asked for a copy of the Veronica. In 1368, during a stay in Rome, Charles IV was allowed to let his painter make copies of the Veronica. Moreover, there are two changes in the representations of the Veronica, which are so radical that critics doubt the very existence of a sudarium called Veronica. The first change is thought to derive from the passage from the bleeding Veronica to Veronica who meets Jesus on the way to Calvary. From the second half of the 15th century, the face of Christ is suffering, bleeding, and crowned with thorns. However, we notice the same change for the Mandylion, the face that was thought to have been given by Jesus to King Abgar during the years of his public life was rediscovered in connection with the days of the Passion, the agony in Gethsemane. Like in Constantinople, it may not have been the legend to affect artists, but the actual observation of the sudarium to influence the story. While at the origin of the crown of thorns, a change which has also involved the representation of the crucifix, there may be, first of all, the fact that in 1239 Louis IX paid a very high price for the relic of the crown of thorns from Constantinople, around which he built the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. And secondly, the discovery of the Shroud of Turin, which also came from the treasure of Constantinople and had bloodstains on the forehead and the back of the head. Between the 14th and the 15th centuries, the iconography of Jesus takes on certain precise and characteristic elements. The forelock at the beginning of the parting, a rounded face, reddish hair, a parted beard, a big nose and a small mouth, common also to the Mandylion. Other features that are not derived either from the mandilion or the shroud are a large neck, an open mouth with visible teeth, wavy hair. In the scenes of the Passion, the cheek struck by Malchus and the torn beard are portrayed. Over time, the papal privilege to see the relic privately was granted only and rarely to kings and emperors. The inaccessibility of the veil meant that the face of Christ was portrayed more and more freely by artists. In 1525, Ugo da Carpi made an altarpiece for the Holy Year and added to his signature the words, "made without a brush." This is likely to be the last reproduction of the Roman Veronica which Dante and Petrarch had seen. In 1527, during the sack of Rome, the rumour spread that the Veronica had been either destroyed or stolen. But on March the 21st, 1606, it is reported as the main relic located in the new St. Peter's Basilica, inside the pillar called of the Veronica. The second radical change occurred in 1616, when the Imperial Court of Vienna asked for a copy of the Veronica. Pope Paul V waited a while and then sent a considerably different Veronica. The face of Jesus has his eyes closed, as if already dead. In 1618, Grimaldi compiled a booklet on the relics of St. Peter's. The face on the cover is generic, but it matches the traditional image, with open eyes. Between 1616 and 1620, further copies of the Veronica were made. In 1635, the booklet was reprinted, with a single change, the image of the Veronica on the front cover. Paul V prohibited further copies of the relic. In 1629, Urban III ordered the destruction of all existing copies. Anyone with access to a copy should deliver it to their pastors, and these to the Vatican, on pain of excommunication. In 1898, Secondo Pia discovered the face of the shroud. In the 20th century, the devotion to the Holy Face spread. St. Therese chose the Holy Face as part of her name. In 1936, Jesus confided to Blessed Mother Pierina, "Those who contemplate me, comfort me." In the 50s, Jesus revealed to the mystic Maria Valtorta that he left the veil of the Veronica as a comfort for his mother, and that the veil would be a goad for the skeptical. Compare, you who go for dry tests, rationalist, lukewarm, with wavering faith, the face of the Sudarium and the shroud. One is the face of a living man, the other of a dead man, but their length, width, physical features, shape, characteristics are the same. Valtorta's work was printed with a note about the Roman Veronica, which is by now unreachable. No close-up pictures have been taken so far. In 2000, the Vatican Library organised an exposition about the face of Christ. The section about the Veronica closes with a question of what is really kept in the pillar of St. Peter's. If experts are waiting for the Vatican to admit that the Veronica was either lost or stolen, the sceptical simply say that the Veronica, like the Camulia and the Mandilion, never existed. Benedict XVI chose to visit Manopello at the beginning of his pontificate. This may mean that the bets are still on.